Okay, I didn't think I'd be here quite so soon, but I've got an issue with the motor. This is the new motor that I installed on my Victor lathe. Now the issue I'm getting is I'm getting a really squealing noise as the spindle comes to a stop. You can't hear it now. It's only when this is warmed up that you can hear it. But if I give that a run, you'll see how that should run an awful lot better than that. And I'll compare that to the other motor that I've got that I took out originally. Let's have a look at how that one spins. But yeah, there's some sort of stiction going in here. Now, I was getting a terrible rumbling noise out of this motor, and I've had to back the tension off slightly on the V-belts. So I've either got a bearing that's gone south on me, or I've got a seal inside here that's not appropriate for this. Now, these motors should have what we call a high-speed seal in them. So we're going to find out when we get this apart as to whether we've got any seal damage that's occurred on the motor shaft. Now, when I built all this up, I did it in two parts, so I can take this section out. I've also got a section here that I can put some all thread in and create a strong back and pull this off as well. So unlike the previous one that I had to take off, I've designed in an arrangement that I can take this off fairly easy. So I'm going to get this off now, and let's just see if we can see what's going on. But we're going to have to strip this whole body down, get down to the armature, and maybe press some bearings off. But let's get this off first and let's have a bit of a look. Alright, you can see the setup. I was lucky. This strap are at 127 centres or 5 inches, which is what the centres are on the T-slots on the Bridgeport. So all they do is drill in 12mm diameter hole through to match that stud. So that stud's screwed up into the end of the shaft, motor shaft. Got these in place. Normally you'd screw this down and pull it back that way, but the way it's set up, we'll see how we go here. Now this shouldn't take much to get off. It should go off fairly easily, which it is. I have oiled everything up on this so that take away any issues that might cause us some binding. That's alright, that's a lot easier than the old cast iron one that was on there on the original motor. That was an absolute nightmare. But, yeah, this is the way it should be. Alrighty, that's off. Let's get in there and get this out of the way, and let's get in and have a bit of a look and see what's going on. Alright, I've got everything apart, and I can't really see any issues with the bearings. They feel quite smooth. A little bit of play, but nothing serious. As far as the seals go, you can see where they have been rubbing on the shaft. I can't see any deformation in there. That's the seal that's there. Now I did find some rubber shavings off this, so I suspect maybe this one here is the issue. The one that sat on the back, which is here, didn't have any issues, but you can see where it has been rubbing, but no discernible really wear there. As I said, I will take these bearings off and I will replace them with NTNs or SKFs. There's some quality bearings in there. I'll put low friction seals into these, so I'll also replace the two seals now that I've got this thing apart to this point. Alright, it's Sunday today, but I'm off work tomorrow, so I'm going to duck down to my local Rob Hamilton bearing store, or my CBC store, and see if they can help me out. Alright, more to come. Right, so this is the hydraulic press. I've only just cracked this. I thought I'll go and grab the camera and show you the setup. This is a 20-ton press, and it probably went just a tad over 15 tonne before it actually went. But it's going reasonably easy now. that's it. Yeah, I've got no idea. C and U, I don't know who makes it. It's obviously a Chinese brand, but yeah, we will stick some qualities in. 6308 double seal. All right, we'll get this cleaned up, and tomorrow we're going to get some new bearings and seals. All right, next issue I want to deal with. I want to open up these V-grooves. This is the pulley that I made and brake drum that I made for the new motor. And it's a two-part arrangement, so I've actually bolted on the pulley onto the drum. Now, one of the things that has happened, you can actually see a ridge that's actually formed on here. It's on both sides of the belt. And my V-belts don't engage fully into the groove. Now, with the old pulleys that I had on this, they actually sat reasonably flush, but these are new pulleys that I've got. So I'm going to just take a total of 0.2 of a mil out of the groove faces, so I can get that to seat in a little bit further. So I'll strip this down and get that apart. I'll get that set up in my small lathe, and we'll make a start on that. Alright, I've got this pulley set up here on a mandrel that I've machined. I've just got an aluminium stop block up against the centre. I've already machined this one here. I'm happy with this. The belt's coming up fairly flat across the top, whereas it was sitting up quite a ways. So I'm just doing this second one here, and then I've got the third one over here. Okay, this is a B section pulley, so it's a 34 degree included angle, so 17 degree split in half. That 34 degrees is up to a 7 or a 7.5 inch diameter pulley. Over that, it then swaps over to a 38 degree. So if you have a machining pulley V-ways, just check on your machinery's handbook as to what those angles are, because they do change as the pulleys do get bigger. Right. It's coming down quite nicely. If we have a look at the one I've already done, you can see that that's fitting, as you can see, that's fitting fairly flush. So I've got a little bit more to go on that one. Alright, it's got a little bit more. Alright, well, I'll keep you going. I'll keep going with this, and I'll bring you back when I'm done, but it's getting closer. Alright, I've just been out to my local bearing supplier and picked up new bearing seals and new belts. So that's the new belt sitting in there very, very nicely. So I'm happy with that. That's going to work nicely. Alright, let's get this out of the lathe. We'll get this reassembled back onto the brake drum, and we'll get ready to start putting the bearings back on the armature. Okay, because the pulley is separate to the brake drum, so it's in two halves, what I do to get the bore aligned and the key aligned is I get them both well and truly engaged onto the armature shaft, and then I do up all my socket cap screws. That way I know when I go to assemble it, everything is perfectly in line. Alright, I've got a couple of quality Timken bearings to go onto this shaft. I've made up all the adapters that I can use with a ram to get this pushed on. So I'll get this set up and get this first bearing in. I'll follow it up with a second. Alright, so that's our setup. Bearings sitting there ready to go. That's one of the push-out jigs that I've made up. I've just machined the OD down a little bit so it does register quite nicely on the inner race. In this application, I always push on the inner race, and I'll put a register on there for the next part of the pusher, which is this bit of pipe here. So I've drew that up on the ends. It's going to sit in there like that. And then we've got that bloke. Alright. Let's see how we go. Make sure everything's nice and true. Alright, see how we go. A lot easier. That went on a lot easier than what it came off. Oh, the second one. Right, so these are the seals that I've got. These are a 4062 by 8mm thick. Seagull brand. My supplier recommended them. What I will do is I'm going to put a very, very small amount of silicone grease on the lip in the cavity. I don't trust my supplier, but let's just double check sure. If you do want to reduce the friction any further, you can take out the little spring that's inside there, and I have done that in the past. So let's see how these go. Alright, let's start putting the covers back on again. That's the O-ring lubricant I use, the silicone based lubricant. So I've just put that onto the lip there, and I've also filled in the cavity between the dust seal component of this and the oil seal component of the seal. One other thing I always do when I'm pulling things apart is to witness. So I've got 2 center pop marks here. I've also got 2 center pop marks in the shaft, which I've filed back down, so that I can just make sure that everything goes back in exactly the same way that it came off. Alright, I'll keep going with that. I just want to take that very, very gentle. That lip's now over the shoulder. So we're on the way, and that seal is now in situ, or that bearing is now in situ. Alright, I'll get ready to pop this into place now. I have to get this back into service. Alright, one thing I did forget to do was put the wavy washer on. That gives a bit of preload to this armature. So, take 2. Alright, we're back together. Let's turn it on. Alright, all appears to be well. Alright, now that I know that it works, I'm going to put it back in. So it's going to take me about an hour or so. This is an awkward thing to get in. Before I do that though, I've got to make sure I get the brake drum and the pulley put back in place. Alright, I'll do that first and then we'll get it in place. Alright, that's it running with the pulley on. No vibration issues there whatsoever. Alright, that's all locked up. We can get all this back together now. Alright, aligning the pulleys. This is a bit awkward. I can't get a straight edge down, so all I can do is get a plumb bob down. So that string is up against that face and up against that face with the weight hanging down. Hopefully you can see it down there. Now the thickness I've got on this land here is 2mm, and I've got that plumb bob sitting just over 2mm to account for the thickness of the rope or the string. And that's as close as I can get it. As far as being this way,